Hey everyone, welcome to Dynasty Pros Free Agent Frenzy. I'm Dustin, and I've got Nick and Cody here tonight. We're going to go over all the signings that have happened yesterday and today is the first day of the legal tampering period. Nick, how's it going?
It's going good, man. Crazy day. Excited to talk about it. Um, I know for me, my phone was going off all day, so I finally get to just kind of shoot the breeze, talk about the dynasty impact, the fantasy impact, and hopefully have some fun doing it.
Yeah, I agree. It was a crazy day. If you have notifications on, your phone was blowing up. Cody, how was the day for you?
Well, work really got into it in the way of having a really good day. But I mean, I love this time of year. This is probably my favorite time of year is tampering / free agency and all that stuff, draft. I think I almost like it more than the actual season now. But coming from a Vikings fan, that should be pretty standard. So
Yeah,
we're not out of it yet.
It's definitely a good time of year. I've always said the draft is the best sporting event in all of sports because all 32 teams are involved, and it really can make or break your franchise and it really changes the trajectory of your franchise with one good draft. But the same thing happens with free agency, right? You get that guy, it can set your course for the next 3 or 4 years up or down if you sign the wrong guy, or trade away someone, or you make bad trades. Carolina Panthers. But I think that's where it goes. So let's touch on a little bit of the news. Starting off, T. Higgins, franchise tag, but has requested a trade. Nick, what are your thoughts on T. Higgins in this whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, I figured he wouldn't stay with Cincinnati. I know they just don't have it in them to re-sign him with Chase being due for a contract coming up. So this is what was expected from me. But I think there are some spots that I really don't like for him. Like I wouldn't really want him to go to the Panthers. It just wasn't a good showing last year, and that just wouldn't excite me as a T. Higgins owner. Same thing with the Giants. Not a Daniel Jones guy. I'm an Eagles guy, and I have a lot of T. Higgins. So to have him go to the Giants, again, not something I'm looking for. So fingers crossed for the Chiefs. They look like the most desirable destination out there outside the Bills that could potentially make a move for him. Yeah, and, he's such a good talent. I would really be interested to see what type of numbers he can put up by himself now that he's this far along into his career. So like I said, have some places I'm really trying to avoid. I do have him on the trade block in a few of my leagues just because that's a real possibility. He could be stuck with Daniel Jones or, possibly getting a rookie next year coming in. We really don't know. And that would make me nervous to have a ton of shares of him heading into this, unknown trade period lingering for him. So, yeah, hopefully the Chiefs.
Hopefully the Chiefs. That's a good point. Cody, are you buying or selling or holding T. Higgins in your dynasty leagues right now?
I'm always holding T. Higgins, but if I'm going to try to buy, you gotta gauge what type of fantasy owner you have. You have the Knicks of the world that are trying to sell in some and buy in the others, but yeah, landing spot's going to be key for that. But I also think I would still buy even if he went to the Patriots or the Giants or the Panthers because every situation is a little bit different. And I think he has the stuff to be a wide receiver one regardless and top 12 receiver in fantasy every week. So I'm a firm buy for T. Higgins.
Yeah, I agree. I'm holding or buying. I do get Nick's concerns. There is some less than desirable locations for him, but I think he's proven that he can be a one no matter where he goes. Now, not all ones are created equal, right? A 1B on Cincinnati is different than the one for the Giants or the one for New England, depending on who's throwing the ball. So that is interesting. We'll get to the second bit of news. It combines with another piece of news. So let's skip around. Let's go to running backs. So Josh Jacobs, one of the top names in running backs, signs with the Green Bay Packers. And conversely, like an hour later, which seemed right on the wall, the Packers released Aaron Jones. Let's talk about Aaron Jones to begin with. Nick, where do you think Aaron Jones will go? What are some good landing spots for Aaron Jones?
I mean, I don't know how many spots are really left. Like Baltimore's the obvious one. I think, whoever goes there is going to be hitting the jackpot in terms of, decent landing spots. I don't think he's going to get a ton of money. I think he gets a 1-year prove-it deal because he is 29 at this point. Miami, I think, might be in the mix only because I believe Mostert's a free agent. I don't know if they bring him back. And you have A-Chain, who showed a lot of flash, super exciting guy, but you want him taking 20 carries a game? Probably not. So looking for a veteran like that on a possibly cheap deal with, kind of the ability to say, hey, we're going for a championship. If you want a shot, come to Miami. That would be somewhere really, like I said, desirable for him. But outside of that, I don't see him getting a lot of money to be the for sure one on a team at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Cody, are there any bad landing spots for Aaron Jones you don't want him to see him go?
Some of the bad landing spots I didn't want to see him go already signed some players, like Antonio Gibson to the Patriots.
Yeah.
Just didn't get it, Austin Eckler to the Commanders, I really didn't get either. So some of the bad landing spots are gone, in my opinion. But the one landing spot you didn't say that I wish that he will do is the purple team right back here already. Why not have a redemption arc and sign that 1-year deal for $5 million, but play your old team 2 times a year?
Yeah,
I always like a good redemption story.
Yeah, Vikings definitely need someone. I think Ty Chandler is good, not great. Be a great 1-year deal. We'll see what the Vikings do. There was some rumors that they're getting calls about Justin Jefferson, who's now not happy that Kirk's not back. I tweeted out earlier today, Aaron Jones was drafted by Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is the coach in Dallas. They need a running back. Seems like a good fit. We'll see what happens. Now, I know Mike McCarthy didn't necessarily use Aaron Jones well his first couple of years, but there is that familiarity there. Dallas lost Tony Pollard, so there's definitely a need there in Dallas. So that could be an interesting fit if Dallas wants to make a run, which they have been pretty good, so they could make another run at it this year. So with that, Tony Pollard leaves Dallas, signs with a surprising team to me, the Tennessee Titans. He'll be there with Tyjae Spears. Nick, what does this look like for fantasy for you with Pollard and Tyjae Spears in Tennessee?
It bumps Tyjae down a little bit, but ultimately I'm not totally concerned because I'm just not a Pollard guy. I see this reminiscent to the Carolina signing Miles Sanders last year. For me, I'm a pretty strong believer in Tyjae Spears' ability. So I just don't see a scenario next year where we're looking at it at the end of the year where Tony Pollard gets, more than 60% of the snaps in that offense. I just don't see it. I think Tyjae Spears is just so much better of a pass catcher. And even though he didn't run really fast, his game speed looks fast enough to me. I'm still buying Tyjae Spears. So I'll actually be putting feelers out this week for the owners who have him. Maybe they're looking to sell him, so if I can get him for a mid to late second round pick, I'll be buying at that price. I really like Tyjae Spears. So for me, it's not the end of the world for him. But for Pollard, he just doesn't really excite me as a running back. He had a lot of things that should have gone his way in Dallas with the opportunity, and he just really didn't do as much as I would have liked with it.
Yeah, the best time he had the opportunity in Dallas is when he had a second back there in Ezekiel Elliott. I think what's proven for Spears and for Pollard is less touches the better. So if you split both of their touches and get 10, 15 for each, I think they're both going to thrive. And I could see easily both of them getting over 800 yards next year. While that might be all-purpose for Pollard or Spears, I think Spears is probably going to get a 60-40 cut for sure, but you have a good guy to fall back on Pollard. He's a clear complementary back, like last year showed it, but I think it's a decent signing, especially with Will Levis there and some of the weapons they have at wide receiver. I mean, it complements the offense in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an interesting sign. I think Pollard probably doesn't see the volume he saw last year, but I think he goes back to the 2022 numbers, like you said, with Zeke and Pollard in Dallas. I think he can have a good year. I think it does almost lock up the Titans at the 7 pick taking a wide receiver because I think it's a clear need for them. It's the top half of the class. They can get him Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze. I think it's interesting that Pollard and Tyjae Spears have very similar styles and skill sets, so it's not really like a change of pace like we saw with Derrick Henry and Tyjae Spears, where Derrick Henry was the pounder and Tyjae was more of the dink and dunk dart guy speed. So it's interesting how that played out. Shocker for me for sure. Let's move on to another running back, probably the biggest one of the day. Saquon Barkley stays in the NFC East, signs with the Eagles from the Giants. Cody, give me your thoughts on Saquon Barkley with the Eagles and what that looks like for fantasy.
It's great for fantasy purposes. I mean, Saquon Barkley is up RB1 in most leagues and stuff like that, and I don't see that changing with the Eagles. It might decrease Jalen Hurts' value in rushing touchdowns, but that's about it. But that also might open up the passing game a little bit more because now they really have to stack the box because there's a legitimate threat back there. And he's going to bring a dynamic piece of the offense that we haven't seen for the Philly at least last year anyways. And it's finally something just solidified there. So it's really good for the Eagles, in my opinion, and I think it only helps Jalen Hurts in the long run. But maybe, a little diminish on his rushing TDs, but they'll just go to Saquon.
So, Nick, let me ask you this. Do you think Saquon moves up or down in your dynasty rankings? Like, where was he before this trade in terms of where was Saquon at? Was he 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Does he move up because him signing with the Eagles now?
That's a good question. I haven't redone my dynasty rankings since free agency started. I believe I had him at 9, if I'm remembering correctly.
That's where most people have him in that late back half of the top 10.
Yeah. Now, as an Eagles fan, I love it. I think this is a great fit for us and for our team, especially with Kellen Moore coming over. It'll be interesting to see what the offense looks like with Sirianni, Kellen Moore, kind of figuring it out together. But I don't think Howie Roseman makes this move for the Eagles, knowing they don't really value running backs that much unless they're going to use Saquon like a workhorse. Like, you just don't make that move, spend all this money unless you're going to use him that way. So I think gone are the days of us hearing Kenny Gainwell is the RB1 out of training camp. You know what I mean? I think you're going to see Saquon be the for sure workhorse, which Philly hasn't had in a long time. That's always what usually hurt them in terms of like having a really productive RB1 or, having an RB1 in general. It's just them not giving the volume. But I think this is a sign that says, hey, we've got away with mediocre running back play for a little while, but it hasn't put us over the edge. Let's bring in a guy that does, help take us that next step and hopefully compete for a championship this year.
It might be pretty interesting to bring back up the dynasty debate Nick, Joe, and I did, where I had Saquon in the top 5, and now 2 Philly fans didn't have him there. I think I just want to pat myself on the back here real quick.
Yeah, go check that out on dynastyprosfootball.com. You guys did a dynasty debate not too long ago where you guys debated your top 5 running backs. And if you're looking for more Feed and Frenzy, we are, as a team, putting out content, articles with basically fantasy impacts of all these signings. We're trying to get them out as soon as possible. So almost all of today's signings are out there already. Some of them will be TikTok videos, but all the big ones, there's articles. We kind of break down the signings and what the impact is across the team. So check those out, dynastyprosfootball.com. Let's move on to the running back that left the Eagles, DeAndre Swift, who I thought was one of the top guys I wanted to see sign. Broke my heart and signed with the Chicago Bears. I'm a huge Roschon Johnson and Khalil Herbert fan, so seeing DeAndre Swift comes in there is going to be the clear RB1. Cody, what does this mean for Chicago in the long term? Like, what does this mean for their team? Are they going to keep Justin Fields? Do you think this sways that at all, or do you think this was just a piece to upgrade the running back position?
I think it was just a piece to upgrade the running back position, but based off what I saw last year, is it actually an upgrade? I don't know. Because they have the younger running back in Roschon that I thought they were finally giving some praise to. And Khalil Herbert has been pretty decent for him in years past. And I, like you, I am a huge Herbert fan. Yeah. And as a Vikings fan and a fantasy owner, DeAndre Swift has never scared me. So I was happy with the signing of him coming back because if he's in the game, I know we're going to get the ball back pretty soon. But I don't know. I don't think it affects anything Justin Fields related. I think he'll get traded eventually. I just don't know when or where to.
Yeah. Nick, what are your thoughts on DeAndre Swift signing with Chicago? Do you think he matches, exceeds, or underperforms last year's numbers?
Ooh, I think he definitely underperforms last year's numbers. Bears don't have a good offensive line. They're trying to add pieces, but that's like the biggest hole besides quarterback on their team is offensive line. So going from the best to the worst is never good, especially when you're in like what seems as a jumbled running back room right now. Like, I do think he's probably the most explosive running back in terms of like quickness, but like I just what it says to me is that the Bears really want to help support whatever quarterback they bring in by relying on the running game. That's what this says to me, is that just like Cody said, it seems like not a depth piece, because I do think he's going to be at the top of the running back depth chart, but I do think it's just about adding talent to the room. And like I said, really relying hard upon that as they bring in a rookie quarterback. I think that's more or less what this is for Chicago.
No, I agree. And it could be Caleb Williams at 1. They could move and get Drake May or Jane Daniels if they trade back. They also have 9, so they could get a quarterback there if they really want to wait. They could theoretically come away from this draft with Marvin Harrison and Jaden Daniels, so they could do a lot. I think it definitely gives them options to move. I'm surprised they signed a running back. I do agree with you. They need offensive line help. There was 3 other running backs that signed today. Antonio Gibson with the Patriots that we mentioned. Gus Edwards with the Chargers coming over from Baltimore, so Harbaugh to Harbaugh. And Devin Singletary signed with the Giants. Real quick, Nick, which one of those 3 are you most excited to have on your fantasy team? Gibson, Edwards, or Singletary?
Yeah, it's going to be Singletary. I was pretty impressed with him last year. I was never high on Singletary, but he walks into a depleted running back room. I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants ultimately drafted a guy like that. I think they have to walk away with somebody, but whether it's an early pick or a late pick, I think bringing in Singletary gives them a little bit of flexibility. And then Antonio Gibson, it just hurts from Madre. I'm just not excited about that offense. I got to wait to see it. That doesn't move the needle for me at all. And then the last name there is escaping me that you said. What was the
Gus Edwards.
Great landing spot. I like that for him. But very similar situation. I would be shocked if the Chargers didn't add somebody else. And I mean, Kelly's not very good. Spiller's not good. So Gus Edwards right now is their best running back. So again, I think that's an area where they could add to that room. But just overall talent-wise, I think Singletary's probably the best out of all of them at this point in their careers.
Yeah, Cody, if you had to pick one, Gibson, Edwards, or Singletary, which one are you most likely to have or most excited to have on your fantasy team?
Gus Edwards, and that's because of the Harbaugh effect. He's going to want to run the ball. Yeah, he might bring in a rookie or Blake Corum too, but he used a dual backfield in Michigan. So I think he's just going to do that again. I mean, the writing was on the wall, especially since, they're saying we're going to run the ball signing Will Dissly and then Gus Edwards. Yeah. Probably one of the bigger tanks at running back.
No, right. I agree. And we also had one more signing that it's not on the show sheet, but Austin Eckler signed with the Washington Commanders. I want you guys just real quick prediction. Cody, who's the starting running back week 1? Austin Eckler or Brian Robinson?
Robinson.
Nick?
I have to agree. I think this is more of a depth signing again.
All right, so Austin Eckler, fall from grace, going to be backing up to Brian Robinson. I agree. I like Brian Robinson. Now let's move on to the position that we all want to talk about, the quarterbacks here on Free Agent Frenzy at Dynasty Pros. Dustin here with Nick and Cody. Let's talk about the big one. Kirk Cousins comes out last night that he's probably not sticking with the Minnesota, signs with Atlanta for 4 years. What does this mean for Atlanta's offense pieces? Nick, what do you think this means for Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson?
Well, I think the biggest beneficiary is going to be Drake London. I think he has a legitimate possibility of finishing as a wide receiver 1 next year. Kirk Cousins still got it. I think when I was looking it up before the show, he had 5 games last year out of 8 where he finished as a top 10 quarterback. So he still got all the tools you need to be, a valuable starting piece on your team in Dynasty and in redraft. But specifically for Drake London, we know the talent. And anybody who owns Drake London has always hated the Arthur Smith effect on him in general. There's just so much talent and potential there. I think this is a clear move that they want to let him loose and be able to get him targets. So I think he's going to be the biggest beneficiary. But yeah, boosts to all of them. They all are moving up as a result of this for sure.
Yeah, Cody, what do you think this means for Kirk Cousins? Can he return from this Achilles at such an older age? Will he exceed or underperform or match last year's productions now that he's with Atlanta?
Well, I mean, if we're looking at last year's production, he can definitely match that because
he missed so many games. Yep.
But I mean, 7 of the 8 years before that, he eclipsed 4,000 yards, and he's never had a season other than last season that he hasn't hit 25 touchdowns. So, yeah, I think he can. And I mean, Are they the same weapons that he had in Minnesota? No. But he has a better running back. It's a wash at tight end. Let's just call it what it is.
Yep.
Kyle Pitts moves up the rankings with Kirk Cousins there because you can see how he pelted TJ Hawkinson with targets. So that's a wash. Obviously, Drake London's not Justin Jefferson, but he's still like moves up the ranks as well. So he didn't really downgrade in weaponry either, so I don't see why. And he's got a way better offensive line. But the biggest aspect of that is Bijan Robinson, in my opinion, because that's just a huge get. His best games for Kirk Cousins is when he gets to play action. And when he gets to do play action, that's where he's going to thrive. And what better running back to have than Bijan Robinson? I think only Breece Hall would be better.
Yeah. No, I agree. He's still got Tyler Algier. There's still a chance Atlanta could draft a wide receiver. It's a deep wide receiver class. They could add someone like they did with Jordan Addison in Minnesota. So I agree with that. I think it's a good place for Kirk Cousins. We had two other signings last night. Baker Mayfield returns to Tampa Bay, and Russell Wilson signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's talk about Russ and if Russ will cook in Pittsburgh. Now, they said it's going to be a QB competition. I don't think any of us believe that. He took the vet minimum, like $1.4 million. He's obviously still getting paid $30-some million from Denver. So who is the starter in Pittsburgh, and how do you think they'll do this year? Nick, we'll start with you.
Russell Wilson's the starter for Pittsburgh. I just don't think there's a chance that he's not. I didn't see a lot out of him last year to where I feel like he's still got top 12 or quarterback 1 potential. I just don't see that anymore, but it's a pretty big boost to Pickens or George Pickens, I think. You know what I mean? Like, he can elevate the offense still because Kenny Pickett he doesn't do a whole lot. He's pretty one-dimensional in his game, and I just don't feel like he sees the field real well. Russell Wilson's going to bring a ton of experience to that team. But whether or not it's going to be worth holding on to Wilson, I don't know. If I have him, I'd be selling this news and trying to just recoup back some stuff because I just don't know if he's still got it. And for somebody who's 35 years old, if I'm not that confident, I'd prefer to get a younger asset.
No, I agree. Cody, what are your thoughts on Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh with George Pickens, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, Pat Freiermuth? Are those guys you're excited about or any guys you're worried about there?
Well, the one that you didn't mention, and I hope that he doesn't get traded now, is Deontay Johnson because he is a route technician and he is going to be open, and he shows every game that he can make himself get open through route running and his good feet. And I think that's what Russell Wilson needs. I think this might diminish George Pickens a little bit more because, as you can see last year, he doesn't throw if he thinks you're covered, and George Pickens cannot separate from a defender to save his life. That's why he always has the amazing catches. So I think it helps Jalen Warren and Najee Harris as well. Again, I think if the best years of Russell Wilson's production is when he had Marshawn Lynch. So now you have a two-headed monster that kind of add up to a Marshawn Lynch. I'd be happy with that. And obviously, I'm a big Patty F fan, so I like him a lot. I'd like him with whoever's throwing him the ball.
Yeah, I actually wrote in the article today that I'm worried about Pat Freiermuth with Russell Wilson. Like, he doesn't traditionally use his tight end.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this good question. So Kobe posted Falcons are at best a 500 team with Cousins. The Steelers have this record of being, winning teams, not having a losing record. Do you think this is the year that Pittsburgh has a losing record? Nick, what do you think?
Their division's not getting any easier. You know what I mean? They got to play Baltimore twice a year. They got to play Cincinnati twice a year.
And theoretically, a healthy Cleveland with Deshaun Watson.
If I had to put the money on it, I would be betting the under.
All right, Cody, what about you? What are you betting? Over, under, a 5, basically a 9-8 team for Pittsburgh.
It's going to be 9-8. Mike Tomlin doesn't lose.
All right, you're right there. You're getting the push. All right. Let's talk about Baker Mayfield. Returns to Tampa Bay. They've signed Mike Evans and now Baker Mayfield, getting the band back together. Is Tampa Bay going to win the division, the NFC South this year? Cody, what do you think? Does Tampa Bay have a chance to repeat as winners and make kind of a deep playoff run now that Baker is back in the fold?
Well, it's one of the weaker divisions for sure. I think right now it comes down to Atlanta or Tampa Bay. And with that, I think the Bucs have as good a shot as anyone in that division because it's always hit and miss. But they have two good weapons in Godwin and Evans, even though Godwin had a little bit of a down year.
Yep.
They bring most of their skilled positions back. It's just if they can improve on their defense that they've lost a lot in here lately. That's the biggest question mark, but I think they can win that division for sure. I think Atlanta's going to be the only one that pushes them a little bit.
No, I agree. Nick, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, Atlanta's improved, obviously, and we know what the offense could look like. So that in my opinion, they're the only ones that would stand a chance right now. The rest, Saints are not good, and Carolina even worse. So,
oh, I agree. And Carolina's made some couple moves to get some offensive linemen, but I think they're still fall behind. Our friend Goody over here said over. If they won with Pickett, Russ will cook. Let me ask you guys that question: who has more wins, Pittsburgh or Tampa? Nick, what do you think?
Tampa.
Cody?
Tampa, just because of what the division looks like.
I would agree with that. And we had one more quarterback signed in today, one that I was interested in. Gardner Minshew signs with the Las Vegas Raiders, in theory to probably compete with Aiden O'Connell for the starting job. Nick, what are your thoughts on Minshew Mania now in Vegas?
He's a good backup. Yeah, let's just call it what it is. He's a good backup. I think, in my opinion, what this signing tells me is that Oakland probably tried to make phone calls and for Kirk Cousins or to move up in the draft, and it was just too expensive. More than likely not calling to, New England, realized that they either didn't like who was going to be available when they pick at 13 or that it was going to be too expensive to move up. They had to get some insurance in place, and I think that's what this signing is. I actually was kind of impressed with Aiden O'Connell last year. Gardner Minshew's fine. If they are in an open quarterback competition, I actually think Aiden O'Connell wins that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Minshew definitely gives them that safety blanket if O'Connell doesn't progress the way they want. Antonio Pierce seems to like Aiden O'Connell. I thought Minshew was the guy that I thought one of these teams would sign to be a bridge, and they wouldn't draft a quarterback, whether that was Denver or Las Vegas. I'm excited the Raiders did it. Cody, do you think this helps or hurts the skill positions with the Raiders? So Devontae Adams, Michael Mayer, Jacoby Myers, and presumably Zamir White as the running back.
I think it's a push between both of the quarterbacks. I don't think there's any effect because I think if Aiden O'Connell, I agree with both of you. I think it's Aiden O'Connell's job to lose.
Yeah.
So I think if he does lose that job or he gets hurt, you go to Gardner Minshew. I think it's about the same.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a push. I give a slight bump to Jacoby Myers. I think Minshew can really exceed. I think we saw him do that with Josh Downs, kind of dink and dunk over the middle, let him go after, run after the catch. I'm a little worried about Michael Mayer. I wrote in the article that's on DynastyProsFootball.com that I think the Michael Mayer breakout might be on pause. Minshew hasn't really used the tight end. Las Vegas really didn't use Michael Mayer that much last year, so I'm worried that breakout and that ceiling is really capped for him right now with Devontae Adams, with Jacoby Myers on the outside. So I think it's a bump for Myers. Jacoby Myers, a little downgrade for Michael Mayer. Goody is saying he is calling it right now, Fields to the Commanders. That would be very interesting. We haven't seen any move on Justin Fields. Let's talk about that real quick. Are you guys surprised we haven't seen Justin Fields get moved yet? Nick, are you surprised we haven't seen Justin Fields get traded as of today?
No, because I just don't think the Bears are in a rush. They're the ones with the power right now, and I think they have a number in mind, and probably nobody's met that number. And as free agency starts to dry up the quarterback market, teams are going to become a little bit more aggressive, picking up the phones more. One thing that you want to avoid, obviously, because it's a double-edged sword, is the teams that could be in play for Fields go out and settle for something else because the cost is too high. And then the Bears are stuck with having to sell them for pennies on the dollar. So you got to be careful playing that game. But I mean, Fields to Washington would be super interesting. But it comes down to how their scouts are evaluating these top quarterbacks. If they don't think that Jaden Daniels is better than Justin Fields, or that Justin Fields is not, Justin Fields is farther along with how they want to compete now, then if that's the case, then I could see that happening for sure.
Yeah, Cody, what are your thoughts on Justin Fields not being traded so far?
I think Nick hit it on the head. I think they're just playing the waiting game a little bit, see if they can just squeak out just a little bit more than what they're being asked or with what they've been presented with right now. And I think they might get a little bit more, but I don't think the market is as like what everyone's been saying, right? Robust as it should. And I mean, we had 5-6 quarterbacks sign already today, so that doesn't help their chances either. So now I'm really not surprised. It might be a draft night trade now.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys watch a lot of film on these college prospects. Both of you guys do great work scouting players, watching film. Where does Justin Fields rank among the rookies coming out with Caleb Williams, Jay Daniels, Drake May, J.D. McCarthy, Penix, and Bo Nix? Nick, where do you have him in that list? Do you put him fourth behind the top three? Do you put him somewhere in the top three?
I would have Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams ahead of him. I would have him, right in between that next tier, probably at 3 in that case.
Right ahead of Drake May.
Right ahead of Jake May, JJ McCarthy, depending on how you want to shake that out. But you got to consider the contract implications as well. You're getting these guys who have 5-year windows to be able to show what they got. Justin Fields showed you some of what he has, and you hope he could still progress, but you're going to have to re-sign him, and that is one of those situations where you have to weigh that out. Do I want to go with the youth and the contract upside with one of these rookies, or is Justin Fields that much better than the guy you're going to get at that spot to justify trading that pick away for Justin Fields?
Cody, what about you? Where do you have Justin Fields ranked in that group of rookies?
It's really tough. I think I'd put him right after Drake May, to be honest. But
So
it
at
all
4?
depends. Yeah, probably at 4. But it's also just kind of, do I think Caleb Williams is going to do just as good as Justin Fields did with the Bears? It might be a wash. So, I mean, maybe Caleb Williams is at 4 too. Landing spot is really key. I mean, Washington, is that really a good spot to go? New England, is that really a good spot to go? So I don't know. Maybe I just based off what I've seen on film, I like Trey Lance, so I can't really say anything. But it's just more of a.
I like Trey Lance too. It's okay.
Yeah, Fields could be 1, but based off of the landing spots that are left, he still could be 1. But just from what I see on film, I like the other 3 just a little bit more. And again, we don't have to sign him for 5 years if you draft him in the first round. So I think that's
a quick question to you, Cody.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a 0% chance that he goes to Minnesota?
Don't give me hope. I want him to. I want him to really.
Would Chicago do that?
I don't think Chicago does that. I mean, trading someone like that in the division. But realistically, landing spots out there, it's Denver, Minnesota, Washington. New England did sign Jacoby Brissett, so maybe that's their bridge with Mac Jones. We'll see. Maybe they decide to take Marvin Harrison at 3. Who knows? There's just not a lot of open spots left. So there's talk that Justin Fields may land as a backup somewhere, maybe behind a Geno Smith or a Matt Stafford, backing them up for a year. We'll see. Let's move on to the one trade we did see. Jerry Jeudy was traded to the Browns for basically nothing. Where do you guys think Jerry Jeudy falls in that offense? Is he better or worse off than he was in Denver? Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's a push also. It's really going to come down to Deshaun Watson. Can he return to any sort of form? I mean, Jerry Jeudy did better last year. He got more slot work. I think he was one of the better slot guys in the NFL last year, just from some of the numbers that I looked at. And if he can continue that role, I think there's clearly an opening to be the wide receiver 2 opposite of Amari Cooper. But I'm just not really that high on Jerry Jeudy to begin with. Like, I think he's okay. But I think because he was drafted in the first round, we still have that idea about him that he's that type of player, and I just don't think he is. But with that said, I would much rather be catching balls from Deshaun Watson than from Russell Wilson at this point in their career.
Yeah, Cody, what do you think about this trade, Jerry Jeudy to go into Cleveland?
I really like Jerry Jeudy as a wide receiver 2 in Cleveland for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he was projected, and like Nick said, he was a first rounder, so he was projected to be the new franchise guy in Denver, and obviously that didn't work out. And when you're playing with 2 wide receiver 2s and one of them's trying to be the 1, it's not going to work out. I think Amari Cooper is the clear wide receiver 1 in Cleveland with Deshaun Watson, and I think Jerry Jeudy has a lot of pressure off of his shoulders, and I think that might help him exceed expectations, even if the stats are the same.
Yeah.
So I think by this time next year, he might be in a positive light, and it might be the same amount of stats as he had this year.
Yeah.
But that's his expectations now.
No, I agree. It's all going to come down to how Deshaun Watson plays for me, and
Yep.
if he is there. Goody is asking, does Judy kill Njoku's upside? Cody, what do you think about this? Is this a kind of a death knell to Njoku, or is Njoku still the second target in the pecking order for Cleveland?
I think Watson kills Njoku's upside more than anything because he didn't use him when he was healthy last year anyways. He started finally getting some value when Flacco started throwing to him and DTR. But I think even more weapons is always key. You can't double Njoku, you can't double Cooper, and you can't double Judy now. So one-on-one coverage, someone's going to be open. So I think as long as you can find the open guy, I think they all can eat.
Yeah, Nick, what are your thoughts on this? Who you rather have in that offense, Njoku or Jerry Judy?
Probably Jerry Judy, because I agree 100% with Cody. You only really saw Njoku perform well or just put up some numbers when it was Joe Flacco throwing the ball. So I'm not, again, Njoku's not really a guy I've ever really been buying. I thought he's always had talent, but I've seen some drop balls and he's lost me some weeks, and maybe I am a little bit biased, but new situation for Jerry Judy. And like I said, I think if you have a positive year from Deshaun Watson, he can kind of go back to a little bit of some form that we saw from way back when. Then maybe he's productive and ends up being, a wide receiver 24 at the end of next year.
That makes sense. So we got one last signing that happened today. Gabe Davis leaves the Buffalo Bills, signs with Jacksonville, 3 years, $39 million. Is this just another Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk type signing where it's kind of an overpay for a wide receiver too, hoping he breaks out? Nick, what are your thoughts on Gabe Davis in Jacksonville? Is he going to finally be a reliable fantasy option that we all hoped he would be the past 2 years?
I mean, how could he be? He wasn't with Josh Allen. I mean, like what better situation could he have asked for than what he had? He didn't have the pressure of being the number one. That was clearly Stephon Diggs. And now I think he goes into a situation where, it's just not improved. So I just don't see how he can be moving up rankings. That's another guy that if for whatever reason someone's looking at it and is excited, I'm more than happy to have you take Gabe Davis off my hands. He's one of those guys I don't think too highly of. And if I'm a Jacksonville fan, this isn't a good signing for us. I'd be wanting them to target a wide receiver in the draft with one of their early picks because I think they need to get Trevor Lawrence up there. And I don't really get it. And to me, it's a downgrade from Ridley. I don't get it.
Yeah, that's a good question. Cody, is this a upgrade, downgrade, or lateral move moving from Calvin Ridley now to Gabe Davis?
Significant downgrade, in my opinion. But I'm a huge Ridley guy. And I hope it's that team that I think they just swap teams. Hopefully, I hope Ridley goes and plays with Diggs in Buffalo because cool. It's again like Jerry Judy. Calvin Ridley's already 29, just coming off of his rookie deal. So it's like he's might be out of his prime now, but he can be a serviceable wide receiver too, especially to an elite wide receiver. I think Calvin Ridley could put up 1,400 yards with Stephon Diggs on the other side. And a great quarterback to throw him the ball. Now, will they do that? Again, I might be getting my hopes up, but if you're saying I'm improving from Diggs to Gabe Davis to Diggs and Calvin Ridley, I'm very happy. If I'm saying I'm downgrading from
Calvin Ridley to Gabe Davis.
Exactly, yeah. So it's just like, I don't know. Ridley to Davis with who's the other guy there in Jacksonville?
Christian Kirk.
Christian Kirk, yeah. Christian Kirk and Ridley sounds better than Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis, in my opinion. So.
No, I agree with you guys. I think this makes Gabe Davis, I think at best, he might be third on the depth chart. I think it's Christian Kirk. I think it's Evan Ingram, then Gabe Davis, and he still has to compete with Travis Etienne. Yeah, and Zay Jones will be there catching the ball, which I think has a very similar skill set to Gabe Davis, that kind of field stretcher. So that's all the signings that happened yesterday and today. If you are watching this, thanks for tuning in. Now, we will have shows every night going over all the news and signings each day. It'll be our whole team is going to rotate in. There's been lots of rumors out there. We see Darnell Mooney is being listed to the Chiefs. that could be something to happen. It sounds like the Vikings are interested in Aaron Jones. There's lots of things going to happen, so stay tuned. So hit that subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. It's going to be roughly around the same time every night, but varies depending on our work schedules. We are here just to kind of help you out. Check us out on dynastyprosfootball.com. We'll be releasing articles going over all the breaking news and signings as it happens. We got one question before we go for you guys. From our leader, Bob Miller, is Justin Jefferson still the wide receiver 1 in Dynasty? Cody, is Justin Jefferson still your wide receiver 1 in Dynasty?
Of course he is. I don't know why. Last year we didn't have Kirk Cousins for 6 to 8 games, and he still hit 1,000 yards receiving. It's the product of the offense that they had. I mean, Nick Mullins threw for 400 yards twice. We had Josh Dobbs look like a serviceable quarterback for a few weeks. I mean, Jaren Hall didn't look good, but he still got Justin Jefferson the ball. So, I mean, it's the matter of, Cooper Kupp was good with Jared Goff, and now he just hit the next level with Matt Stafford. And he might go down in a little bit of production, but he's still going to get you the 1,500 yards and 7 touchdowns.
All right. Nick, what do you think? Is Justin Jefferson still the one?
He is for me. The real piece there, Jordan Addison, is a guy that would make me a little bit nervous, only because you just don't know who's going to be their quarterback, But I think Justin Jefferson's quarterback proof, so I'm not concerned about him.
All right, before we get out of here, let's give everyone what's your hopes and maybe one signing that you hope we see that you would be excited about. So, Cody, what's the one signing you hope we see the rest of this week that you'd be excited about?
Aaron Jones, Minnesota Vikings.
All right, Aaron Jones. Nick, what do you got?
I'll go Calvin Ridley to the Eagles. Let's lock up that wide receiver 3 for the Eagles. No more Quez Watkins.
That's interesting. And I would really like to see T. Higgins traded to the Bills. That's my dream, is that they make a trade for T. Higgins. I don't think they can do it, but I would love to see my Bills get a big name wide receiver out there. So that's been Monday Free Agents Variance here at Dynasty Pros. I want to thank Nick and Cody for coming on. Nick, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on the socials so they can check you out and all the work you're doing?
Yeah, on Twitter, @Goodwin_TV.
And Cody, where can they find you at?
It's at Cody Folden on X, and I really just post and repost my things that I write or what Nick writes on Dynasty Pros.
Yeah, you guys do a great work. We really appreciate you guys coming on. So check us out every night. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, do it. You can follow us at Dynasty Pros FF on Twitter. I'm Dustin Lucky. You find me at the DUnit13. But give us a subscribe. Hit that notifications on YouTube so you know when we go live every night this week. Later on this week, Bob's going to be coming on with some of our IDP guys, talking all the IDP signings for the week. Something I know zero about because I don't play IDP, but they got some great minds that are going to come on, talk about all the IDP signings and the impacts they have for fantasy. So if you play IDP, that's the way to go. Check us out at dynastyprosfootball.com. We got all kinds of great stuff coming up for you guys. So check us out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.